Welcome to BioStock studio here at Medicom Village in Lund. Today we are joined by RhoVac, whose CEO Anders Månsson will give us a status update on the company's RV001 project in cancer vaccine. We are also joined by the latest addition to the company's scientific advisory board, Professor Per-Anders Abrahamsson. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
So let's begin with you, Anders. The latest interview we did with you was back in February. Could you give us a brief summary of the most important events in RhoVac since then?
Well, since February, of course, the external environment has been really tough with the corona pandemic. And I know that a lot of pharmaceutical companies have had problems conducting their clinical trials. Some have discontinued trials and there's been lots of patient dropouts. I'm very happy and proud to report that this is not the case for RhoVac. We've not had a single patient drop out of our study, and we've actually been able to recruit more centres and open up more countries in the midst of a pandemic. So I think that's a fantastic feat. We have had some impact, of course. We are slightly delayed in our study. We had anticipated originally to recruit all patients by end September of this year, and this will now be end December instead. But that is a 3-month delay, and that is the major impact. So looking at other events, we've recruited a new board member in Lars Hökenström. He was nominated to the board by Rutger Arnhult, our major shareholder in RhoVac. And Lars has a significant background in finance and also in transactions. And that is obviously something that we are thinking about much more going into the new phase of RhoVac. Some of you might have noticed also that we've had an intensified marketing of RhoVac as of lately. We've had articles featured about RhoVac in international trade press. We were featured in Scrip a couple of months ago, I think. And last week we were featured in MedNews. And the objective of having those articles published is that we want to get the message out there to potential partners in a broader sense than we're able to do with direct one-to-one meetings. And on the topic of one-to-one meetings, obviously the corona impact has had an effect also on the ability to do face-to-face meetings. But luckily we were able to start up relationships and continue dialogues with companies, about 20 companies or so last year. And it was not a problem to continue that dialogue also via digital media. Would have been more problematic to start a new relationship, but luckily that was already done. And yes, we are expanding our advisory board. We had originally Professor Per Straten as our preclinical expert. We've complemented with Anne Ridley, who's professor at the University of Bristol. And as of lately, we've also recruited 2 prominent clinical experts in Professor Klaus Brasser from Copenhagen University Hospital and in Per-Anders Abrahamsson, who by chance happens to be standing on my left here today.
I was just going to say, what an excellent transition to my first question to Per-Anders. Could you give us a brief summary of your professional background?
It's going to be very brief. First of all, I'm a urologist since more than 4 decades. I've been working mainly in this area of Sweden, Lund and Malmö. I was the chairman for 20 years, ending up by 2016. I was also Secretary General of the European Association of Urology for 8 years, also ending up by 2016. And we said from the very beginning we're going to beat the Americans, and we did. So it is the #1 urological association in the world. So I'm still working for them from a distance, let's say. I've been mainly I've been very much involved not only in the clinic in my department historically, but also doing a lot of research in prostate cancer especially. So I have a long history in terms of prostate cancer research, absolutely. And both in terms of diagnostics, but also therapeutics. And that's the reason I'm now standing here beside the CEO of this company.
Yeah, what was it about RhoVac that attracted you to the company?
I think mainly my clinical background as a prostate cancer specialist, and that we've been handling these patients with recurrence of disease, let's say, and high-risk prostate cancer patients with hormone therapy for more than 70 years. And of course there are improvements, but still significant side effects with the hormone therapy affecting the patients quite severely. So there is an unmet need to really introduce something else with less side effects And that's the reason I found this vaccine of interest that could really make a difference for our patients, absolutely. So that's one of the main reasons I found an interest to join this company as an advisor, because I have a background seeing these patients, for, as I said earlier, for many, many years. And it's been a problem, of course, for patients, being extremely worried about rising PSA, but also high-risk prostate cancer patients, even for the doctors, because we know that there is a high risk of recurrence of disease in the near future. So coming up with a promising vaccine would be really a major step forward for us as clinicians, but even more so our patients.
A new role then on the Scientific Advisory Board, how do you see that role playing out?
Well, as a clinician, first of all, I've been seeing, I've stopped counting how many patients I've seen over the years, but mainly cancer patients, and of course, #1 cancer in the world, prostate cancer. The vast majority of patients I've seen over the years. After surgery, obviously radiation and so forth, and also with advanced prostate cancer, of course. So I have a lot of clinical experience in that respect. I've been working also with patient organizations. I've been also working in the United States for a few years doing research in this area. And that's another thing that brought me to this company, because I was so interested and fascinated that there is an ongoing trial. The outcome we don't know yet, am I right?
Yes, of course.
But still, it's an interesting approach, because if we can get rid of hormones at an early stage of disease, especially, and all the side effects, as I said earlier, that would be a major step forward.
Thank you. Well, finally then, Anders, let's finish with you. If you look at both the nearer term and the longer term future for RhoVac, what do you see?
Yeah, if we start with the near term, I think the most exciting thing that's going to happen in the near term is that the US will start recruiting patients. That could happen in July or possibly in August. When I came on board in RhoVac about a year ago, I was one of the most adamant advisors on having the US to be included in the trial. And I think it's fantastic to see that come to fruition. That is obviously very exciting and very important for us. And yes, we have approval now also to start in Sweden, and we have approval to start in Belgium, and we will get approval soon to start in the UK. But I think the US is the most exciting. And as we now have a US IND, i.e. a permission to start trials in the US, we will also file to get a fast-track designation. And fast-track designation means that we're able to progress regulatory-wise faster in the US, and that is obviously of great value to us. And also, if we do get it, it's something that will make our potential partners sit up and pay attention to what we're doing as well. So from that perspective, it's also hugely important. So the criteria in order to get this is that you have to treat an important disease. I think everybody will agree that prostate cancer is an important disease. It's one of the commonest cancers, and it is a killer cancer. And then you also have to have an unmet medical need. And the indication that we're going for within prostate cancer is to prevent cancer recurrence after curative intent, either surgery or radiation, preventing metastatic progression. And obviously, as we're doing our study versus placebo, there is a recognition already that there is no other drug available for this indication. We're also eagerly awaiting our full publication of phase 1/2 results. We had anticipated to have that already published in Q2. Now we anticipate that this will happen in Q3. And this will be interesting because this is a further in-depth analysis of how our product works. And there is also PSA data in there. It will be indicative and it will be anecdotal, as not so many patients actually had measurable PSA values, but it will still be interesting from an indicative point of view. And finally, during the course of the rest of the year, we will start also exploratory trials. These will be preclinical trials initially to try to document the effect of our product also outside the specific prostate cancer indication. And this is really to try to produce some indicative evidence for the hypothesis that it actually works outside of prostate cancer. And indeed, in our scientific rationale, there is nothing that is specific about prostate cancer. So that will also increase shareholder value. And finally, yes, also longer term, I'm looking forward to having more face-to-face meetings again with our potential partners and to continue the dialogue.
Well, hopefully we will see you in the studio soon then to discuss some milestones that you have reached. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.